Today, we're going to be talking about how to get, quote unquote, higher end clients. Now, with many topics that I do on my podcast, you guys know me, I really like to go off of things that I've directly heard and questions that I've had asked of me or things that I'm seeing in the ecosystem of the photography industry, things that are hot button topics. And this is something that I just hear a lot. It is just this statement that I hear so often of, I just really want higher end clients. Or maybe it's not higher end clients. Maybe it's, I want higher paying clients, or I want better clients, or I want more ideal clients, or I want luxury clients, more luxury clients, or I want aligned clients for me. The reality of all these things is that these titles are so abstract. There's nothing actually formulated here. They're just kind of like an idea of something. They don't really do anything for you to say them. It really doesn't. So that whenever somebody asks me something like, how do I get higher end clients? I'm always like, what does that mean? What does that mean for you to have higher end clients? Is it just that you want somebody paying 500 more? Is you want someone paying 1,000 more per package? Is you want them to have better style? Like, what is it? Because unless we define those things, it is still so abstract. It's like having a bow and arrow and you're shooting with this idea of a target in mind, but there's not actually a real target. It's just this idea of something. So your arrow is going to miss every single time because there was never an actual target there, right? So the question I have to throw back at you when you say, I want ideal clients or I want higher end clients, my friend, what do you mean when you say those things, right? And many don't know what they mean when they say those things. And there's no shame in that. It's just, that's what we're here today. That's what we're going to talk about in this episode. But again, many don't know. And it's just this abstract idea or this ideal that, we're like, well, I know what I don't want. And I don't really know what I do want, but I have this idea of it, but I know what I don't want, right? Like we're like, I don't want someone who's low budget. I don't want someone whose style is stuck in 2018, someone who is non-intentional, someone who's super high maintenance to work with, someone who's disrespectful, etc., so on and so forth. All that's fine, right? It's good to know what you don't want too. That's really helpful to know what you don't want. That can actually fuel you to know what you do want. But let's also define what we do want. Let's define that ideal client. Let's define that higher end client. And a term for you that I have today is something that I'm going to be using here. It's called market targeting, okay? Or you can say targeting in marketing. It's that big T word, targeting. And that's what targeting means, is it means you take the market as a whole, the whole vast market of anybody you could work with, and you choose one target of it, a slice of it. This is why I talk so much about niching on my show, because niching is so important as a part of this. It's taking a slice of the pie and saying, I'm not just going to try to get anything. I'm not going to shoot an arrow at everywhere and miss everywhere. I'm going to shoot my arrow at something specific, at a niche portion of the market. Okay. Now, why niching? Why targeting? Again, so your message hits specific people and makes the people that you're speaking to, when you have their message, when you have something that resonates directly with them, when you have something tailor-made for them, something they want, it makes them feel like you're reading their mail. You know what I mean? Like, it makes them feel like, wow, this person's really speaking to me, speaking my language. That's who I want to work with. It targets better referrals because, the person on the other end of that referral, let's say it's a planner, let's say it's a client who's an old client of yours who's referring a new client of yours to you. Here's the thing, you're going to get better referrals if you've chosen a niche, if you've chosen a target of the market, because they're going to be like, yeah, if you've got any old wedding, whatever it is, I'm not sure if, let's say me, I'm not sure if Nate's your guy because he niches into this type of wedding with this type of budget and this type of style and this type of client. But then when they're like, oh, that specific thing is exactly what Nate does best. And I heard my friend wants a photographer like that. Boom. That directly coincides with what I know Nate does best. And so I'm going to send that client over to Nate because I know they'll be a best fit. Same thing with planners. Planners think even more along those lines. They only want to refer their clients to people who are the best fit. They don't just oftentimes want to refer their clients to jack of all trades. They want to target they want to find the photographers to work with their clients who are specialists, okay, who do what those clients want to do and do it best. But anyways, a huge thing I want to talk to you about today is getting specific on who this ideal client is and developing a type of ideal client for yourself, like on paper. Okay. So please take notes for this. If you gotta pause this and take notes for it, please, because it's very important to get this down and to make sure that this is specified and it's not just stuck in this abstraction that won't help you. The abstraction won't help you. So you gotta make sure this gets clarified for you. Okay. So the first thing I want you to do, okay, you got your pen out, you got your paper out. We're going to ask ourselves, who is this dang person who we want to work with badly? Let's get specific. All right. So I want you to write down like different things on this list. Okay. So I want you to write down like, what is this person's age? And I'm not talking about writing down what it is yet. Just write down the category: age, a category, occupation, a category, what stage of life they're in, a category for what's their income level, lifestyle, motivations, desires, values, interests, personal style, brands they like to wear, movies they love, vacations they take, what kind of personal background do they have? Do they have many friends? Do they have few friends? Are they maybe even introverted, extroverted? Are they part of any organizations that they're affiliated with? Are they religious? What religion are they? Are their parents going to help pay for whatever their thing is, especially if it's a wedding? Are their grandparents going to help pay? What's their parents' income level? Maybe even what's their grandparents' income level? If they are getting married, and if this is a wedding and you're a wedding photographer, what kind of venue does your ideal client have? What type of venues are they going to get matched up with? What type of planner are they going to get matched up with? Are they going to hire? What florist? What style? What's the total budget of their entire wedding? And then what's their photography budget? What's their photography style, right? So you've got all these categories, right? So many different categories written down. What I need you to do is I need you to fill those in, okay? You want to create this actual person, like not just this idea of a person, but this actual person on paper. I mean, obviously it's not a real human being. You're going to make this, like, to make these things up. But I really want you to get very specific on like who this person is. How would we fill in these categories for this person, right? So I'm going to give you an example of this. Let's say we're going to call this first ideal client Jane Stevens. Just as an example, Jane Stevens is her name. Jane's not a real person, but she's a real person in our world, in our business world, because she's basically going to be our client avatar, our client persona, our idealized client, okay? So let's say, and this doesn't have to be what this is for you. I'm giving an example. For you, it's probably going to be different. But let's say age, Jane is 31 years old. Or maybe she's between the age of 30 and 35. Maybe she's between the age of 27 and 37. I don't know. Get specific though. What's her occupation? Let's say she's a nurse practitioner. Or let's say she is somehow involved in corporate America. Maybe she is a manager. Maybe she is a sales director. Maybe she is a dentist. I don't know. Put some of these occupations down, okay? What stage of life is she in? Well, if you're a wedding photographer, she's probably engaged, probably about to get married. That's a pretty significant stage of life if you ask me. What's her income level? Well, let's say it is right around $250,000 a year, okay? And maybe there's some ability to increase that over the next couple of years of her life. I'm not sure, but right now she's sitting right at about 250,000 per year. She does pretty well for herself. For lifestyle, let's say she's kind of a simple gal. She's a homebody. She loves her home. She loves some interior design. She loves some travel, and she loves her friends. She loves her family. She loves what she does for work. She loves to go out and shop. She loves going to peruse through art galleries. She loves music. She loves going to music concerts or musical events. She loves going to maybe football games with her fiance who loves football. So she's got a lot of different interests and lifestyles. Maybe motivations, desires, values category. Maybe she highly values excellence. I mean, if she loves art and she loves art galleries, she loves music, she loves excellence, she loves the arts, the fine arts, she loves beauty, she loves how, or not loves, she put stock into how people think of her. She cares about her good reputation. Or if she were to have a bad reputation, she'd care. She cares how she's perceived. She takes a lot of stock in social cues, things like that. She likes to be kind. She likes security in her life. She likes quality things, quality materials, quality pieces of living. She values happiness. She values low stress. She cares about things like legacy. Okay, let's talk about maybe her personal style in that category. Maybe she's kind of a classic and she's fashionable. She likes a good fashion. She's not like the most fashionable person you ever met, but like she values fashion. And she is maybe more of an urban style girl. Maybe she's got a little bit of a prep style to her. Maybe some brands she wears would be like Anthropologie, Quince, Zara, Abercrombie, Reformation, Lululemon. You guys didn't think I knew these brands, did you? Oh, I do. I have a wife. Maybe sometimes she will splurge on Ralph Lauren or Louis Vuitton or Chanel, right? Like she maybe just like every once in a while she'll get like a little splurgy with like a purse or like a pair of like shoes or something like that, right? Maybe some vacations she loves to take would be every year she loves to go to Hawaii, or every other year she likes to go visit Europe and do kind of like a Mediterranean tour. And maybe when she takes like a local trip, she's going to Florida. Maybe she's like a snowbird from the Midwest, or she loves California. Let's talk about what her personal background is. Maybe she's kind of this like all-American girl who grew up in rural America, moved to Austin, Texas, moved to Tennessee, moved to Florida, moved to Arizona. I don't know. She's also gone through a lot of higher level education, clearly to be maybe in these positions for your occupation. Does she have many friends? Yes. Let's say she has at least 3 close friends. She's also really close with her one sister that she has, or maybe 2 sisters that she has. She definitely is going to want at least those 4 or 5 people in her wedding. Maybe she's got like a couple other middle of the line friends. She's not sure if she's going to have them in her wedding. She's not sure if she's going to do a bridal party at all, but she's thinking she probably will. Maybe organizations she's part of or affiliated with. I don't know, maybe she goes to church. Maybe it's like a sometimes thing for her. Maybe she's really, really regular to some church. Maybe she goes to a mega church. I don't know. Maybe she goes to a small little local church. Are her parents helping her pay for her wedding? Yeah, let's say her parents are helping a little bit, and they're helping especially with like the venue, down payments, and let's say her dad worked as a CPA and had a steady job most of his life. Let's say her dad has been making around $350,000 a year for the past 20 years at least. So the dude's doing pretty well. Tons of investments, and he has tons of investments and savings. Are grandparents paying? How much do grandparents make? Well, probably, but possibly, but probably not likely that they would help pay for their wedding. So that's a factor. Maybe she'll get money from them after the wedding or later on in the wedding planning process if needed from grandparents. Who knows? So there's a lot of money swirling around here, right? There's plenty of money to go around. So then, okay, let's run with the idea that this is a wedding. And Jane Stevens is actually planning a wedding. And so I know that won't relate to the family photographers in here or the newborn photographers, but for the wedding photographers, let's go with this. So if it's a wedding, what venue? What venue is she looking at? Let's say she's looking at, 3 different venues, and they're all right around, let's say the lowest one is about 17,000 to book the venue. The highest one that she's looking at is about 30,000 to book the venue. And they are more like estate venues. So they've got this classic East Coast style. And that's kind of what she's looking at. She wants something that really feels timeless, maybe a little European influence to remind her of her European travels, or maybe it has a little bit of Mediterranean in it to again remind her of that. That's something she loves to bring back from her trip. What kind of planner would she work with? Well, let's say she really wants to work with a planner who is like a tried and true, someone one of her friends already went with. So she's going to choose the same planner who her friend Katie went with. And so she's like, okay, Katie used the planner. She loved her. It was such a good experience. So I'm going to use her too. And that planner's runs right around like 8,000 to book. And this planner, let's say, is like a full service planner, does most of the work. What florals are she's kind of going with? Let's say she's doing a full floral set. She's going classy, kind of like soft palette blushes. That's like her style too. Clean, classy, timeless, and some color. She's doing some color, but she definitely has more of a soft neutral palette because she just doesn't want to like fully commit to the full color palette. So that's kind of what she's thinking. And let's say her total budget for her wedding is sitting right around, she's estimating 50,000 to 75,000 total wedding budget. So she's got a good budget. And let's say her photography budget, she's expecting, like if she were to just, she hasn't done a lot of research yet, but she's like, I bet you I'd probably, with the ones that I'm looking for, she's like, I'm probably going to be paying, let's say like 7,000 to 8.5 thousand. She doesn't know though. She might have to go a little higher than that. She's not sure. And then style of photography she's looking for. Let's say she wants something that's filmy, so kind of has that filmy vibe to it and that grittiness to it, but also true to life. And she doesn't want it to be too 2025-esque. Like she's like, I want it to still, or excuse me, 2026. Good grief, we are in 2026. And so she wants to mix that nostalgia and trendiness with kind of clean minimalism. Okay. All right. That was a lot. But you know what we have now? Now we have a real person. We have Jane Stevens, and she has real interests. She has real brands she shops at. She has real values. She has real budget implications here. She has vendors that you'd be working with alongside if you work with her and if she hires you. Okay. This is such a beautiful thing once you have these types of things written down of like, who the heck is Jane? Who is your Jane, right? Who is that person? Because if you just say, I just want a higher end client, that means nothing. That doesn't help you. So much about Jane. That is so influential, you guys, okay? And so I want you to make this list for yourself. And I'm not talking about you just making like this ideal list of like someone who's not even remotely a real human being. Like for instance, you got to get in touch with how people work. So if somebody fundamentally has a high, like if they have like a really good budget, okay, for their venue, most likely, you guys, they're also going to have a decent budget for something like their planner and their photographer. Okay. Or let's say this, let's put another one together. Let's say someone has a really good job and a huge career and they do well for themselves financially. Oftentimes you have to understand that's the type of person where they do live a more busy lifestyle and they don't just have so much time to peruse through your website and read all your copy. They don't have so much time to sit on an hour and a half long consult call with you. These people are busy. They have time to read through your website while they're in their Starbucks line, while they're going to the bathroom, pardon me, while they're doing like the most quick thing, right? They only have time maybe to meet with you on a consult call when they're on their lunch break or after dinner. Okay. Like small pockets, small windows. And that's that's why I want you to understand who the person is, who you're actually trying to target. Because I want you to know more than just one thing about them. I want you to connect the dots. How does this person function? This can really help you. Also, something that will also really help you is if you can, like, this is like an extra credit. This makes it really sing. When you can find somebody or a couple, especially if you work with couples who are actually very close to that person that you just created in the what could be like that, because I got obviously like Jane Stevens in this situation. Jane is not a real person, but there are people out there who you can say that person is so much like who my Jane is. I want to watch that person in real life, right? Because oftentimes a Jane will exist in your real life. It's like, hey, find that person or couple who actually is that person you want to work with, even if even if they're not someone who's about to get married and they're already married or something like that. It's like, still find them and be like, how do they function? Like, I don't mean to be like creepy and stalk them and whatever have you, but there have been people in my life where I have definitely said, that person right there, whether I knew them or they were just an acquaintance or I never knew them and I just followed them on Instagram, I was like, that person right there or that couple right there that's my ideal client. That is my ideal client. And I want to watch them because I want to know how they function, what they value, what's interesting to them, what their lifestyle is, all that kind of, how they tick. Because it might be different than the way I tick, but that is my ideal client. And so if you can find someone real who you can actually identify your ideal client with, that's really, really helpful. Frankly, I'll be honest, if there was a way you could shoot with them for free and somehow get them on your books, that's a huge, huge, awesome thing. Because you know what? If you know someone like that who would be your ideal client, even if they wouldn't hire you, guess where you'll find more clients just like that? Their friends, maybe even their family. So if you can get in with that person, even if it's for a free shoot, I've literally done this before, by the way. I've seen couples where I'm like, oh, they'd be my ideal client. I know they're already married or whatever, but and I've literally offered them a free shoot. Seriously, because I'm like, I know their friends would probably want to work with me and their friends are probably ideal. Or their family would, and then literally it's like, I'm thinking of one couple right now. I worked with them in that way. I was like, they're my ideal clients. And then literally a year or two later, their sibling hired me for their wedding. And it was like one of the greatest weddings I ever shot. So this is why this is so helpful. And now that we know Jane, now that we know who Jane Stevens is, this is what I want you to do next. Now we look at your website. Now we look at your social media. We look at the copy you write on those places, the images you're sharing, the images you're shooting, the past clients you've had, the referring parties that are referring you, the fellow vendors who know you. We look at your pricing. All of these things, I could go on and on. Is all of that your entire suite of in-person and digital branding, and even the clientele you've worked with, is that all aligned with Jane Stevens? Did she have a Stevens? I don't know. Is that all aligned with Jane? Is it? Because all of that entire suite of your personal and digital branding, your in-person and digital branding, it should all be saying, Jane, you, right here, I have what you want. Right? I'm the obvious choice for you. Okay? In brilliant colors, that's what your brand should be saying to this Jane Stevens that you've created. Conversely, if that's not the case, are there 5 other photographers in your area who look way more like what Jane would want? Because if that's the case, you guys, that's bad. That's bad. You want to be the one who looks like what Jane wants. And so if Jane's looking for beautiful estate venues and just, this beautiful art and intentionality and all this kind of stuff, and you're showing not all of that, you're showing the opposite of that. And I'm not going to give an example in case I offend anybody, but if you're not showing that, you should be, right? And by the way, if that's the case, if you don't feel like you are naturally attracting Jane with all of your branding and your portfolio and the way you talk and your copy, don't get discouraged. That's not the point of this podcast. We're changing, we're refining here. That's why we're here. You can be the photographer that Jane wants. You just have to make some changes. And that might take some time. That's okay. But the whole point here is we got to know who Jane is and all about her before we can even market to her. Okay. Now, this is all a loose guideline in a way. When we create Jane Stevens, I don't want you to take her, this persona, this client avatar, I don't want you to take her too seriously. Okay? It's a target that we do want to use and we do want to hit, but you have to remember that real people are real people, and they're different than just formulated Jane Stevenses in our heads, right? So don't get so fixated on just one type of Jane Stevens and specific client that you get lost, or that you're speaking too directly, or that you're crippled because you're like, I don't want to post something on my story today because what if this perfect Jane Stevens doesn't like it? Like, don't go there, right? The point is that we just need to have some target. It's like if you can think of a ship that makes many different pit stops, it makes port in many different places, goes many different directions, but in the end, it goes to the right place. It goes to the right final destination. That's what I want you to think of it as, okay? So another thing I want you to think about here as a caveat is what if Jane isn't your only ideal client? What if you're like, hey, Nate, I love the Jane. Let's say your first ideal client is Jane, is Jane, okay? And again, Jane was just an example for many of you. It's not going to be any of those things that I mentioned. But let's say that you're like, hey, my first client avatar, my ideal client idea is someone who's 30 to 40 years old and they have this budget and they have this big career and blah, blah, blah. But then you're like, Nate, that's not all my clients. Like some of my clients, they're not like that. There's a different person and they're a little different and they're maybe a little younger and something of that nature, right? Is there a place for that still, Nate? My answer is yes, there's absolutely a place for that if you do it right. So let's say Jane is one type, but let's say you have another type of ideal client. Let's call her Kelly. So Kelly is 25. She's in love with her fiance, just kind of a simple girl. And she's just like, I want to get married. She just wants to have a wedding that feels like a hug. Like she's not trying to make this big, huge, highfalutin statement, but she just wants a good wedding. And maybe her budget's more like $25,000, maybe $25,000 to $35,000, not $50,000 to $75,000. You know, and that's such more differences between her and Jane beyond that as well. Okay. And you're like, sometimes I love working with Jane and sometimes I love working with the Kellys. So can I have both? I would say, yes, you can have both. I do think there's a way to target both of them. You can make Kelly's wedding look like what Jane wants. In many ways, you can select and curate different pieces that you're sharing on your website or your social media or the way you talk. Conversely, you can make Jane's wedding look like what Kelly wants as well. There's a lot of overlap, right? And maybe even value overlaps. Like Jane and Kelly may have very similar values. Maybe they have very similar styles. Maybe their budget's slightly different, but in the end, it can all come together to be pretty cohesive. So again, let's say you have these two different type of ideal client personas, avatars. They can work. I want to encourage you in that. Let's say, however, though, hang with me here, by the way. We're doing a lot of just mental gymnastics. But let's say, however, your two ideal client avatars, personas, types are vastly different. And Jane and Kelly could not be more different. In that case, I'd say reassess, like use your best judgment. If one is Jane and instead of Kelly being everything I just mentioned, but let's say Kelly and her fiance are high school sweethearts doing a backyard wedding for under $10,000. Like that might be a bit hard, right? To target both. That's what you got to be careful of. But again, even there, it also just depends. There is nuance to this. So my policy personally is almost always my ideal client might be all these things, like all the things we mentioned for Jane, all the things we mentioned for Kelly, but I'm willing to bend for the client who does inquire, who I'm like, you weren't who I expected would inquire, but you really want to work with me. And I feel like our values are aligned at least. And I want to work with you too. So all of this to say, after all these things, my biggest point in all of this is when you are going for higher end clients, higher paying clients, better clients, more ideal clients, and I'm giving air quotes in all of these, luxury clients, aligned clients, I want you to define. Abstraction does nothing. It only confuses you. Clarity guides you to those right goals. Okay. All right, you guys, thank you so much for listening. Hope this is helpful for you. Hope you have a whole list of notes and share this with a friend. If you found it helpful, pass it forward. I'd appreciate it. And make sure and rate and review the podcast if you could. It really helps me stay motivated and get these types of episodes out more to you guys. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.